welcome to this episode of Smart Leaders Sell. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I'm really excited to dive into today's topic, which is all about planning your launch. Now, before we dig into that, I'm conscious that we've just gone through one of the most epic launching periods in the sales calendar, which is obviously the Black Friday, and today is Cyber Monday, which I'm kind of excited about. I mean, in the UK, we don't tend to go in so much, or we never used to tend to go in so much for Black Friday, for Cyber Monday. It's kind of all a bit new here. And now we're at a stage where people get very excited about it. I get very excited about it because I love picking up technology deals, software, technology, business stuff. I'm like, yay, I get so excited that I might be able to pick something up for a really good price. And obviously I'm addicted to AppSumo, which is kind of like the Groupon for entrepreneurs. I think they actually use that as their tagline. So it isn't a cool phrase that I thought of. I'm pretty sure I've seen it on their marketing. But it's also an epic opportunity to watch people have great launches and also watch people who perhaps haven't really thought their launch through. Now, there's no reason that you have to have some kind of ridiculously planned launch. So you have to be thinking about launching for 3 months before you actually do anything. And then you implement it and it's kind of military precision. But as my dad used to say, and I'm pretty sure I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And so today I really want to dig into why you should be thinking now at the very, very minimum about a December launch, and why you shouldn't be forgetting about December, because hey, it's one of the biggest opportunities for sales on the retail calendar for any business. I will stand firm by that. Having worked in 16 different industries, multiple different divisions, I can tell you that it really, really is a huge month for all businesses. However, comes with a caveat. It's a huge month for all businesses that prepare for it. And that's why you've really got to get thinking about launching and about launching effectively in your business. So let's start with that. The reality is that launches take work, okay? And that means that you've got to have a clear plan. You've got to have a clear strategy for success. And today I'm going to be sharing some of the key activities that you really must consider when you're launching anything. The first one of those, though, is to set goals. Okay. And I know it's scary because we all look at this and we all go, oh, but if I say I want 10 people or 20 people or 50 people or 100 people, what if I don't get them? I'll feel like I've failed. Well, the trouble is when you don't set goals for your launch, because it's not just all about revenue. It's not just about the number of people you get in. It's about the practical aspects too. It's about the amount of visibility your launch gets. It's about the amount of engagement that you get from your audience during this period of time. It's even about the amount of unsubscribes that you're getting from your email list, right? You should be aiming to have some, which might be surprising for people, because ultimately you want to be making sure that when you're launching, your launch is doing two things. One, it's making you money, and two, it's making sure that people who identify with your message are staying in your audience, and people who don't are leaving and finding their own path. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, there might be a few strange pauses today. I still have this cold, right? This cold from hell that seems to be dragging on. So my voice is still a little bit grotty, and I'm drinking water like a fiend. I'm beginning to think that my body is now not just like 95% water. It's the full on 100%. I'm basically mush. But let's kind of start with goals. So when you're setting out a launch, there are a few things you really want to be looking out for. You want to be looking out for ultimately how much money are you making, how many clients are you bringing in, how many people are unsubscribing from your list, and also you want to be tracking engagement. What's happening during your launch? Are people sharing your offer? Are people interacting with your nurture activity? Are people getting excited about what's going on? And even though they're not buying, are they referring people to you? And you also want to be looking at things like your return on investment in terms of where you're spending your time, where you're spending your energy, and where you're spending your money during your launch. So for example, a lot of people track their ROI on Facebook ads, right? We're really good at tracking the ROI of a Facebook ad. Everyone's got their cost per lead. They're looking at, if they're really snazzy, their earnings per lead. But what we're not always great at is looking at, okay, how much time am I spending in my Facebook group? How much time am I spending in my Facebook group posting about my offer? And how many people are buying? Like, what is the conversion on that? What's the ROI on that? Versus the same activity, but to my email list. What's the ROI when I send an offer to my email list? Are more people buying? Are less people buying? These are things that you really want to look at. When you're setting your goals, you want to also have a list of key KPIs. So those are key performance indicators. Now, we used to use these in corporate all the time, and some of them were pretty dull, like spend 20 hours a week on the phone. I kid you not. When you work in cold calling and any kind of sales role, you're going to be spending an awful lot of time on the phone talking to people who really don't want to talk to you. But they worked out, key performance indicator. If you spend 20 hours on the phone, you roughly are going to get the amount of clients that you need every single month to keep the business profitable and to keep you employed. And it's the same in your business. You want to be setting your own goals for your launch, but also your own key performance indicators. How many emails will you be sending out to get the maximum return? How many Facebook posts will you be putting out there? How much time will you be spending on Facebook Live or interacting and supporting your audience during this period of time? Those things are good to knows. They're good to knows because, again, when we come to the end of the launch, we can look at them, we can look at the ROI, we can look at the conversion, but also they're really good for managing your time. Because let's face it, like, who's been through a launch and got burnt out midway and just kind of been like, ugh, you know what, this is too hard. And either you've done what I do, which is spend half a day watching Netflix, drink roughly half a bottle of wine. Okay, we're friends, I can tell you, probably a bottle of wine, eat some chocolate, and then I come back the next day and I'm kind of like, okay. And maybe I'm not feeling it, but I'll still carry on, just tired and burnt out. Or you might be in the other camp who, when you get tired, you just drop it altogether. It's kind of like, I don't want to launch anymore. This is hard. It's painful. The highs and the lows are too much and I'm burnt out and fatigued. Most people will have experienced that at any one time. It's completely normal. The good news is, though, that when you set KPIs in your business, especially during launch time, okay, this week I'm going to spend 3 hours on Facebook Live, or this week I'm going to spend 2 hours interacting and supporting my audience during this launch period. It gives you some indicators and it gives you a schedule. And that's a really good thing because it stops you getting burnt out, it stops you getting tired, it stops you getting frustrated with your launch. And again, it gives you that trackable ability when we go back and look at how the launch actually performed. Now, when we're starting the launch, because let's face it, everybody thinks that the launch does start with the sale. When we actually say, hey, I have this thing. Here's the PayPal link, or here's the, ClickFunnels page, go buy it. Actually, though, your launch starts before that. And it usually starts with some kind of pre-launch process, okay? Now, that can be many different things. Some people use wait lists. Some people use teaser activities, competitions, giveaways. Basically, your pre-launch process is about thinking, are you warming people up? Are you warming your audience up to the fact that something good is coming, to the fact that you're going to be launching something? And are you getting them excited before that cart opens? If you're not, you might be missing a trick. And in fact, I'm going to tell you right now, you are missing a trick because everybody loves to know that something exciting is about to happen. Now, it doesn't matter how you hit the button, so to speak, on your cart opening, because ultimately the job of the launch is to get as many eyes on your offer as possible and help you convert them into clients. Now, if you just rock up one day and you perhaps don't have a large audience, or even if you have a large audience but it's not massively engaged, and you open the cart without anyone being prepared for it, they're not going to necessarily be bought in as quickly. It's a cold sell. Even though they know you, even though they might like you, they might trust you, it's a colder sell because they haven't been adequately warmed up. They're not prepared for you to sell them anything. And this is why key retail periods like Black Friday, like the Christmas sales that come up before Christmas, and then afterwards we have the post-Christmas sales, they warm shoppers up really well. Because before those periods of time, before we had Black Friday, lots of companies were already putting out adverts. Lots of people were already targeting on Facebook ads, on the television, in print, saying, hey, Black Friday's coming. What are you going to be doing? We're going to be offering something really special. Get on our email list, sign up to a wait list for a specific item or product. People make the most of it. And actually, your audience really loves to be warmed up. They love it when you tell them that something's coming. You don't necessarily have to tell them what it is. You don't have to go into the pricing or the details, but letting them into the secret, letting them know that something cool is coming, makes them feel included. And actually, it starts that buying process right then. It's putting the idea in their head that actually you're creating something that could solve a potential problem for them. And so they are more inclined to keep looking at you and what you are doing and keep an eye out for that exciting thing that's coming. Now, the second thing that we need to look at is the way that you open the doors, okay? The way that you open the doors to your launch is going to be very dependent on who you are as a seller. So if you haven't listened to the episode yet on the types of sales psychology out there and what kind of seller and buyer you might be, go and have a little listen to that, and check out that episode so that you can start identifying sales activities that are going to be good for you in terms of feeling really good for you and therefore feeling really good for your audience, because not everybody sells or buys in the same way. For example, I usually run challenges. I love challenges for opening the cart to new products or services in my business. For one, I get to engage with people, I get to support my community, I get to give them a ton of value for free, which I love. And then when I push the button, everyone's primed. Everyone's ready for something. Everyone's excited about the new thing that's coming. And so generally, if I'm running a challenge, I will be selling at the end of it. However, that's not everyone's preferred sales style. Okay, I tend to be selling group offerings, and challenges work really well for me because they develop my community. They make people feel included. They make people want to stay in that community environment. And so when I sell a group program off the back of it, people want to be with their friends. They want to be with the people they just completed the challenge with, right? That doesn't always work for every offer. Not every offer is going to be a group program. Not every offer is going to require that kind of community or fear of missing out sales perspective. Some of the sales perspectives are going to be aspirational or emotional. And so there are other tools out there that can work better for those, things like webinars, video series, competitions, giveaways. Those things can all be really, really good ways to hit that cart open button. So you want to really be thinking about your preferred style of sales. Do you prefer selling face-to-face? So does video work for you, or phone calls work for you? Or are you somebody who likes to have a kind of more removed process? You want to be a little bit more removed from it. You want to have a video series that goes into a sales page or something like that. It's really important, though, that whatever you choose is something that is going to be simple for you to set up, simple for your audience to participate in or consume, which is why webinars are really, really popular, because it's like 45 minutes of solid gold information and then a pitch. And ultimately something that is going to convert. And the key to converting in terms of sales is to have a really good structure for your launch process, for your sales calls, anything to do with actually taking that prospective buyer and making them into a customer or turning them into a customer. And also to do with how confident you feel doing it. If you're not confident on webinars, if creating PowerPoints stress you out, webinars are going to be difficult for you. They're not going to be enjoyable. And so actually, that might not be the best way for you to open the cart. But if you're somebody who is a really outgoing person who has a really engaged community, you might be able to give an epic Facebook Live with a ton of value that makes people want to purchase. And that might be your way of opening the cart. You don't have to stick to the traditional send an opt-in, then a $10 ebook, then a bunch of email sequences and an upsell and a this and a that. You don't have to do that during a launch. You get to pick the tools that you use. And this is key to remember. These things aren't just tools. Webinars, challenges, giveaways, video series, they're all tools that you can choose to use. And my best advice during a launch is to pick the ones that fit you the best. What are the things that are going to make you confident, that are going to make you happy? Because let's face it, launching is stressful enough without trying to use a ton of things that you don't understand, trusting technology that you've never used. It's all about confidence, okay? Now, the next thing that you need to look at is when you go into launch mode, and this is all obviously advice based on the assumption that you've already created an amazing product or service or offer that you love and that you 100% know is in integrity with what you do and can create the right amount of transformation for your client depending on what you're looking to help them with at that point in time. Okay, so if you haven't done that yet, if you haven't created that offer yet, make some notes here, take note of the launch plan, but your biggest job right now is to think and get clarity on what does my offer need to be? You know, what do I really need to create for my clients? And then go and implement the stuff in this episode. Because otherwise it all goes a bit hit and miss. You know, offers are really, really important. How you sell the offer is also really, really important. Okay. So the next thing you need to focus on is your follow-up activity, right? Have you ever been there where you opened the cart, you're like, yay, cart is open, woohoo, buy my thing. And it's kind of crickets. Right? We've all been there. Okay. I've had programs that have sold nothing. I'm going to throw that out there right now. So if you are like me and you have had programs that have sold nothing, don't worry about it. Doesn't mean that you're bad at selling. It may mean that you need more practice. It may mean that you need to assess your launch process. It might mean that you need to look at some of the other variables that are involved with selling, but it doesn't mean that you can't sell. Okay. Now, what tends to happen is we have this big moment of the cart is open, please buy, this is really exciting. It's kind of like that initial high. And so sometimes we get no buyers. Sometimes we get a trickle of buyers. Sometimes we get tons of buyers from that, and it's awesome. And we're like, yes, this is brilliant. This is epic. What we tend to miss is the fact that people actually need to see or have 7 touch points from you in order to buy, right? 7 touch points. So if you've just put out 1 webinar, 3 videos in a video series, 1 Facebook Live, you actually haven't given them that many touch points with you. It might feel like you have, but actually you haven't given them the recommended. And I say recommended because I'm like, it's a statistic. Jess loves a statistic. But you haven't given them the recommended amount. And some people do take longer to buy than others. That's going to depend on how well they know you, how well they trust you, and whether or not they like you and the offer that you're putting out there, right? But having those extra touch points helps. And that's where a lot of people fall down. We don't always do the amount of follow-up activity that we need to during launch, okay? Now, what tends to happen is we get really excited, we open the cart, all bells, all whistles, jazz hands galore, and then we kind of retreat because we're like, well, we've done a lot of work. By now, we're feeling quite tired, right? We've planned the launch, we've created a webinar or something like a challenge, something where it's massively valuable, but that actually drains us of energy. And so once we've done that, we're kind of a bit like, ugh, please just buy. Just buy or go away, right? Have you ever had that feeling? Just me? We've all had it, okay? We've all been there. And actually, that's when the follow-up activity is so important. And this is where I think sometimes we get a little bit stuck as entrepreneurs because nobody's really sure on the right amount of follow-up activity or how to do it. And again, it's because there is no one way, right? There's no one way that you can be successful. Different launches have different requirements. Different ideal clients have different requirements. Different products, services, or programs that you're selling will have different requirements. But again, it's about when you're looking at your launch, when you're planning it out, it's thinking about these things and saying, okay, the way that I'm going to sell a premium one-on-one service is going to be very different to how I sell an ebook. Okay, the activities are going to be very different. The tools you're going to be using are very different. That's what you need to be thinking about during this whole launch process, and particularly during the follow-up activity side of things. Because follow-up activities can be as simple as social media outreach, like reaching out to people in your Facebook group. If this is a one-on-one service that you're opening the doors for, and you're like, oh, Amy over there, she's been asking questions about this for weeks, I might just pop her a message and be like, hey, Amy, I created this offer. I don't know whether you've seen it yet, but I'm not giving you the hard sell. I just thought it might be something you'd want to cast an eye over because it seems like it'd be really helpful to you right now. Okay, your follow-up activity can be that simple. It can also realm into the slightly more complicated or slightly more automated side of things. I love webinars, right? Love a webinar. Love video, hate creating slides, but, luckily can create very basic ones with minimal effort. And I love the interaction that you get on a Q&A. After I've pitched on a webinar, I also love the fact that I can have an automated email sequence running. This is so awkward. I'm like, oh dear, everyone who's listening has probably been to one of my webinars. I'm so sorry. When you've opened one of those emails, I have written them the week before the webinar. They are going out automated. I'm not sending them hitting send on them every day. But I have really thought about what goes into them. And it's one of the reasons that follow-up email sequences in my business play a really important part, because they can be automated. And you don't have to try and hide it. I don't. I don't usually tell people publicly, but hey, you're listening to the podcast. It's like we're buddies, right? I can share this with you. But it is that kind of element of automation that makes my business a lot easier, because like we were saying, launches take work. They take time, energy, and you can get fatigued really, really easily. And so having that element of automation, having that 5 to 7 day email sequence that takes people through the touch points, that takes people through any initial objections they might be having, any fears they might be having about purchasing, any tips and techniques about how they can best use the program or product to their advantage, talking to their desires, sharing testimonials or case studies. Those can really help people make an empowered decision. Now, it doesn't mean it's the only way to sell. And it certainly doesn't mean that those emails are designed to push somebody into buying from me. A lot of those times, all of those times, those emails for me are designed to help people decide whether or not they want to buy, whether or not this is the right thing for them. Okay? A launch process is designed to empower people to make the right decision. Do they need this? Do they not? Because even if they don't buy this time, they might buy next time. And actually, your launch process will also polarize people. Depending on what you're saying, depending on how you're selling, depending on your messaging, people will be deciding whether or not they like you, whether or not you're somebody they want to follow long term. And it can really help you weed people out as well. So when you're thinking about these follow-up activities, don't be afraid to get into people's inboxes, right? They're on your email list, they're on wait lists, they've signed up for your webinar or your challenge or your chatbot or whatever. They want to hear from you and they want to be given the option to purchase from you. Just be sensible with it. And remember that people also want to be offered choice. Okay, they want to be offered the opportunity to remove themselves from your launch list. Okay, so you can segment them out. And they also want to be offered the opportunity to unsubscribe. Nobody wants to be stuck with a chatbot that every single day pops up with some mega long message that you've never asked for and there's no opportunity to unsubscribe. That absolutely defeats the point of chatbots and also removes the person's choice system. Okay, and when you do that, when you force people into a corner, they're not going to buy because they're just going to be hacked off that you're forcing them to listen, watch, read something that they don't want to see every day. Okay, So make sure with your follow-up activity, whether you're doing proactive outreach, whether you are using an automated email sequence, whether you're using regular Facebook Lives in your group to promote it, Facebook posts, emails, broadcast emails, promotional emails, chatbot promotional emails. It doesn't matter what you're using to promote it, to follow up your initial launch sequence. You need to be consistent, you need to be structured, and everything needs to give your audience the choice to buy, the choice to not buy, and the choice to leave your community. The penultimate part to launching is that ultimately we do have those people in our communities who are fence sitters. Okay, I can be a fence sitter, right? I love buying things. I would say that I'm massively like a fear of missing out buyer. So I will watch countdown timers avidly. But I can also be a fence sitter. If I don't know somebody that well, if this is my first experience buying from them, I can be that person who's kind of like, oh, should I? Shouldn't I? Maybe yes, maybe no. Oh, I don't know. Oh, because buying it's a big decision. If you're making a big investment, sometimes even if you're making a small investment, it can be a big decision because who you buy from says a lot about who you are. You know, the products that you're buying say a lot about where you're taking your business, or where you're taking your fitness or health or life, relationships. So buying is a big decision for people, and it is normal to have these people who will sit on the fence till the end. They're not sure whether they're in or they're out yet. And so what we have to do is take responsibility for the fact that we need to give them all the information that we can to give them that opportunity to make that empowered decision. So we really want to be talking to those last minute fence sitters, those final fence sitters, right? Now, this is about using your final reasons of urgency. And urgency is really important during launches, not fake urgency. Fake urgency is sad, okay? Fake urgency, fake scarcity, you know, when someone's like, oh, I've only got 2 spaces left, but in fact, they've actually got 25. It's not cool, okay? And when your audience finds out about it, which they will, because if they buy it, they'll know. And if they don't buy it, then they'll see somebody else who's bought it and knows. It dilutes the trust. It dissolves the trust that you have with the prospective buyer. So when we're talking about urgency, it's not about false urgency. It's about actual reasons that are urgent that that person should buy now. Okay, so that could be the price is going up. That's a very common reason of urgency. The cart is closing. That's another very common and effective urgent reason. You know, if you don't buy now, you can't buy it for another 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Removal of bonuses. You know, removing any exclusive bonuses, that can be a really good way to get final fence sitters in. But don't discount the power of your message or story, okay? Don't discount the fact that if you send that one testimonial that actually gives that huge breakthrough moment, that final fence sitters will jump in there too. Again, we're talking about tools, and it's about looking at your audience and saying, okay, what type of buyers are they? What makes them buy? Are they the person who sits and watches the countdown? Or are they the person who likes to hear the story of why? The story of Joe, who was super successful because they had XYZ breakthrough moment, and that helped them transform their life, business, wealth, health, relationships in some way that they want to change that element of their life. Okay? Don't discount simple things, because launching in itself does not have to be difficult. You don't have to have complex or lengthy launches. The things that we're discussing today can be done in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. It depends, the success of it will depend on how engaged your audience is, how large your audience is, and ultimately how confident you are with all of these pieces and selling. Okay? Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, because this, let's face it, this podcast, I could go into each of these and I could get right down to the nitty-gritty and we'd be here for hours. But the final piece I want to touch on before we summarize is something that people tend not to do. It's the bit that people forget, which is what I call the double Ds. And I literally can't say it with a straight face because I just know that when Scott is producing this episode later, he's going to be like, double D's, is she going to start talking about boobs? Like, what? We're talking about launching, Jess. But the double D's are the bits that people often forget during launch time, okay? And they occur after the cart has closed. So after you've gone through the launch button, you've hit the cart open, you've followed up with everybody, you have made sure that you've got the reasons of urgency in there and you've collected those final fence sitters and helped them become a yes or a no. Now the double D's come into play. Debrief and deliver. Okay. And these are honestly some of the most important activities you need to do during your launch. Okay. You need to go, right, launch is officially stopped in terms of the cart being closed, but how well did I actually do? You need to look at that debrief. You need to look at what worked well, what didn't. Go back to your KPIs that you initially set, those key performance indicators. Did you meet them? Did you exceed them? Did you not hit them? And as a result, what do your sales look like? What does your brand visibility look like? What kind of engagement did you get? Okay? Because those things are important. And when we do a thorough debrief, when we look at that return on investment of time, energy, money, it actually helps us for those next launches, the future ones. So Facebook Lives worked really well in this launch as a touch point, as a follow-up activity to get people buying. Great. Let's put that in the next launch, right? Let's do that. If your audience love it, stick with it. If a ton of people unsubscribe from your emails and everyone said, ugh, just too much in my inbox, maybe next time you need to dial that down. Okay, the debrief is really important. It's important because you need to know what to dial up, what to dial down, what to keep the same, and what to remove entirely. Because no launch is ever going to be perfect, okay? And then the second D is deliver. Now, how irritating is it when you buy something, you have all these high expectations because you've just been through a launch, right? You've followed the person, you're so excited to hand over all your money, and then the onboarding process and the delivery sucks, right? You just kind of, you're like, oh, I'm disappointed. Oh, I feel gross. It makes your customer feel bad. When your delivery is not on point, when your onboarding process is not smooth, when you have no way of welcoming people in, or you don't send them emails and let them know what steps they need to take or how they need to set up their logins or whatever it is that you want them to do, it makes them feel unwanted. And it makes them feel like actually they handed over their money for this really cool, shiny object, unicorn product that's going to make them millions, get the relationship of their dreams. And they bought it, and as soon as they bought it, you stopped caring. You made it clunky. The onboarding process wasn't great. They start to feel resentful. They might ask for refunds. They might not bother consuming the content or implementing it because actually the process didn't feel good. They stopped feeling excited and motivated and inspired. And part of the job of your launch and part of the kind of stopping of your launch is to make sure that your customer is still in that excited, happy, motivated, and inspired phase. Because if they hand over their money and then they're not, right, because something's gone wrong, you're going to have problems. Either they won't consume, they won't implement, they'll ask for a refund, they'll tell other people that it hasn't been up to standard. And so it doesn't matter from that point on what you do, they'll still have that little niggling down the back of their head that said, oh yeah, but I just didn't really feel it. And it's going to take you a long time and a lot of energy to recoup that feeling they had of excitement and trust and motivation. Okay. So those are the steps to launching. Planning your launching effectively, making sure that you set goals, making sure that you have key performance indicators to stop yourself burning out, and then making sure that you actually run the launch in a way that suits you. You can use any of the tools that we've discussed for your initial launch activity. You can choose any different method of following up. You can use any reasons of urgency, caveat with integrity, that you want in order to get those final fence sitters And you can use any way of debriefing that you want to, whiteboard, spreadsheet, whatever that looks like for you. And you can deliver in the best way for you. Automated delivery, manual, it doesn't matter as long as your customer feels amazing. But the point is, having a process is key. Knowing what steps you're going to take and when is really, really useful. It stops you getting burnt out, stops you getting tired and frustrated, and more importantly, it makes you money. So if you take nothing away from this episode today except the fact that a properly planned launch is going to help you make a ton of profit, all the P's, please make sure that it is something that you plan effectively, that you don't just do because everyone else is doing, that you take the time to warm up your audience, make them feel great, launch effectively, and make a ton of money. And most importantly, create a launch process that gives you happy customers that want to return time and time again. If you've enjoyed this episode, which I hope you've had because I've had a blast, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other episodes. Make sure that you leave us a review and let us know how you're getting on with the podcast, whether you're enjoying it, what you're enjoying, what feedback you have, what could I be doing better, or any questions that you have that you'd like to see answered on the podcast. Make sure you email me, jessica@jessicalormer.com. And obviously, if you are somebody who is really involved and excited about sales and learning more sales tactics and techniques, please make sure you go ahead and join my free Facebook group, the Smart Leaders Sales Society. I'm in there with extra trainings, blog posts, and a ton of random pictures, Snapchat filters, and memes all week. So you can catch me there if you haven't had enough Jess on your twice weekly dose of the Smart Leader Sell podcast. Have an epic week.